It's Saturday, February 7th, 2026, and we've just confirmed what meteorologists have been tracking for weeks. A massive stratospheric warming event has triggered a complete polar vortex collapse, and this is going to change everything about the rest of winter. We're not talking about a brief cold snap here. We're talking about a fundamental breakdown of the polar circulation that could keep Arctic air locked over North America for weeks, possibly extending into early March. The polar vortex split is happening right now, and the implications are staggering. In the next few minutes, I'm going to break down exactly what this means for temperatures that could drop 30 to 35 degrees below normal, wind chills approaching minus 50 degrees, and why this pattern could deliver multiple significant winter storms over the coming weeks. So here's what we know right now. The polar vortex, which normally acts like a spinning wall of wind keeping the coldest air locked over the Arctic, has been completely disrupted by a sudden stratospheric warming event. This isn't just weakening, this is a full collapse. High-resolution model data from the European Center and the Global Forecast System are both showing the polar circulation breaking down into two separate cores. One core is positioning itself over eastern Canada, and another over Alaska and western Canada. When this happens, the Arctic gates essentially get thrown wide open, allowing wave after wave of brutally cold air to pour southward into the United States. The stratospheric warming itself has been remarkable. Temperatures at the 10 millibar level, roughly 30 kilometers or 18 miles high in the atmosphere, have risen by more than 40 degrees Celsius in just a matter of days over parts of the polar region. This rapid warming creates a pressure wave that literally squeezes the polar vortex like a balloon, causing it to elongate and eventually split apart. What makes this event particularly significant is that the effects don't stay confined to the upper atmosphere. They propagate downward, typically taking 1 to 3 weeks to reach the surface, and that timeline puts us right in the middle of February for the most intense impacts. Looking at the current forecast, we're already seeing the early stages of this collapse playing out. Temperature anomalies for the next 5 days show a direct corridor of polar air stretching from southern Canada deep into the United States. We're talking about temperatures that will be 20 to 30 degrees below normal across a massive area, and in some spots, particularly across the upper Midwest and northern plains, we could see departures of 35 degrees or more below average. The only areas largely spared from this initial blast are the Southwest and Florida, though even Florida has been dealing with unprecedented cold this winter. Now let's talk about what this actually means in terms of real temperatures. The National Weather Service Weather Prediction Center has issued warnings for what they're calling a significant Arctic outbreak that will bring frigid temperatures and dangerously cold wind chills across the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. We're looking at wind chills in the minus 30s across the interior Northeast and New England. But that's just the beginning. Strong winds on Saturday, with gusts potentially topping 50 miles per hour, are going to make the already dangerous sub-zero wind chills even worse. In some areas, particularly across northern New England and the White Mountains, we could see wind chills approaching minus 40 to minus 50 degrees. These are life-threatening conditions where hypothermia can set in rapidly, and frostbite can occur on exposed skin in as little as 10 minutes. The temperature forecast for this weekend really tells the story. Actual air temperatures, not wind chills, are expected to remain below zero across much of the upper Midwest through early next week. Parts of Minnesota, Wisconsin, northern Michigan, and the Dakotas could see sustained temperatures in the minus 10 to minus 20 range. Even areas that don't typically experience such extreme cold, like portions of Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio, are looking at overnight lows well below zero, with daytime highs struggling to reach double digits. What's particularly concerning about this pattern is its longevity. Unlike a typical Arctic blast that might last a few days before moderating, the polar vortex collapse creates a blocking pattern that can persist for weeks. High pressure builds over the polar regions and Greenland, while lower pressure dominates across much of North America. This configuration favors persistent northerly and northwesterly flow, repeatedly tapping Arctic air reservoirs over western and central Canada. The cold air essentially gets trapped in this pattern, with each successive wave potentially being as intense as the first. The snowfall potential with this setup is also significant. When you have this much cold air in place, any storm system that moves through has the potential to be a major snow producer. The temperature profiles will support snow rather than mixed precipitation across a much larger area than normal. We're already tracking several potential storm systems for the second and third weeks of February. The first could impact the Ohio Valley and Great Lakes region around Valentine's Day, with another potential system targeting the Northeast Corridor shortly after. Given the cold air mass that will be in place, these storms could produce significant snowfall totals, possibly in the 12 to 18-inch range for some areas. Looking ahead to the extended forecast, ensemble model data shows this cold pattern persisting well beyond the middle of the month. The February outlook from the Climate Prediction Center now shows increased odds of below normal temperatures across much of the eastern United States, and this polar vortex collapse only reinforces that forecast. We could be looking at a month where average temperatures end up 8 to 10 degrees below normal across large portions of the Midwest and Northeast. For perspective, temperature departures of just 2 degrees are considered significant, so we're talking about a truly exceptional cold pattern. The energy implications of this extended cold are substantial. Heating demands are going to skyrocket across the affected regions. Natural gas prices have already started to spike as traders anticipate the increased demand. Utilities are preparing for peak heating loads that could stress the power grid, particularly during the coldest periods when demand is highest, and some power plants may struggle to operate efficiently in the extreme conditions. From a travel perspective, this pattern is going to create numerous challenges. The combination of dangerous cold and potential snowstorms will likely lead to significant airport delays and cancellations. Road travel will become hazardous, not just during active storms, but also in the bitter cold conditions where vehicle failures become more common and even brief exposure outdoors can be dangerous. The Department of Transportation in several states is already preparing cold weather protocols for highway maintenance crews. Now, there is one factor that could provide some temporary relief. The Madden-Julian Oscillation, a powerful tropical atmospheric wave, is forecast to interfere with this pattern at times. This could create brief periods where the stratospheric disruption doesn't fully connect to the surface, potentially allowing for short warm-ups. However, these are expected to be temporary interruptions rather than a permanent pattern change. The overall signal for prolonged cold remains strong. For those in the agricultural sector, this extended cold period raises concerns about winter wheat crops and early spring planting preparations. The persistent cold and potential for late-season snow could delay field preparation activities and impact crop development. Livestock operations will need to ensure adequate shelter, and heating systems are operational for an extended period. The pattern is also raising concerns about infrastructure resilience. Water pipes are at increased risk of freezing during prolonged cold periods, and municipalities are already issuing advisories about protecting water systems. Power companies are implementing cold weather preparedness measures, including increased monitoring of equipment that can become brittle in extreme cold. Looking at the broader climate pattern, this polar vortex collapse is occurring as La Niña conditions weaken in the Pacific Ocean. The transition toward ENSO-neutral conditions often allows high-latitude dynamics, like stratospheric warming events, to dominate weather patterns with fewer tropical constraints. This means the polar vortex disruption has a clearer path to influence surface weather patterns across North America. For emergency preparedness, this is the time to finalize winter weather plans. Make sure you have adequate heating fuel, emergency supplies including food and water for several days, and backup heating sources if your primary system fails. Keep emergency kits in your vehicles, including blankets, extra clothing, food, water, and a charged phone. If you must travel, make sure someone knows your route and expected arrival time. The bottom line is that we're entering a phase of winter that could be remembered for years to come. The polar vortex collapse is already underway, and the meteorological setup favors sustained cold and multiple storm threats through at least the end of February, with potential impacts extending into early March. This isn't typical late winter weather. This is an exceptional pattern driven by upper atmospheric dynamics that we only see every few years. Stay tuned for frequent updates as this pattern evolves. We'll be tracking each storm system and cold outbreak as they develop. Make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on because this is going to be an active and potentially dangerous period ahead. Bundle up, stay safe, and we'll see you in the next update.